I was 9 when I realized Sundays were sacred, not for church, not for chores, but for us. My dad would flip pancakes in the kitchen like a short-order cook, while my mom played old Motown records in her bathrobe. By 10, we'd be in the garage, Bruins game humming on the radio, tinkering with whatever project my dad had going. Usually something dumb, like a birdhouse we'd never finish, or sanding down lawn chairs that didn't need fixing. I didn't care. It was the rhythm that mattered. My name's Ryan. I'm 25 now, but this part happened just outside Boston, in a quiet suburb called Wilmington. Back then, life was simple. My dad, Tom, ran a concrete supply yard, and he ran it like a general. Crew loved him, trucks stayed moving, money came in. My mom, Diane, ran the house even tighter. I never saw her sit still unless she had a book or was talking to one of the neighborhood moms. She had this way of making everybody feel seen, like she remembered birthdays, teachers' names, allergies, even the brand of gum you chewed. Her rose garden was her pride. Backyard looked like a postcard from May through September. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Dad wasn't loud about it, but he planned ahead. When I was born, he opened a college fund and told me it was the key. Education's the thing that opens doors nobody can shut in your face, he'd say, usually after I brought home a decent report card or helped him carry lumber without complaining. He didn't come from much, and I think that's why he wanted more for me. My Uncle Dean, Dad's older brother, was the opposite. Flashy real estate guy with a sharp car and shirts that always looked freshly pressed. He'd swing by every few months, toss me a baseball or some expensive souvenir, then talk shop with Dad over beers. They were tight but different, like they'd grown from the same soil but ended up in different weather. I didn't know it then, but everything about those Sundays, the pancakes, the smell of sawdust, the way Mom clapped when Dad made a joke, that was the foundation. That was the stuff I'd spend years chasing after once it all blew apart. It was the summer I turned 13 when everything cracked open. Mom had been fighting cancer for almost a year. It started with headaches, then hospital visits, then this hollow look in her eyes that wouldn't go away. I still remember the night she died. Quiet, just after midnight. No drama, just Dad and me sitting in the living room, lights low. The nurse coming down the stairs, shaking her head like she didn't know what to say. I didn't cry right then. Just sat still, waiting for someone to rewind the last 12 hours. After that, the house turned cold. Not cold like temperature, cold like everything good had been stripped out. Dad didn't talk much. He'd leave before I woke up, come home after I was in bed. I learned how to microwave dinners, wash clothes, keep the trash from piling up. There were days it felt like I was the only person alive in that house. A year passed, then another. Somewhere in that second year, Dad started shaving again, dressing better, smiling sometimes. I figured he was finally coming out of it. I didn't expect what came next. He sat me down at the kitchen table one night, not a pancake in sight, and told me he'd been seeing someone. Her name was Valerie, marketing consultant, divorced, 2 kids. She's good people, he said, like that was supposed to tell me everything. The first time I met her, she wore heels in our kitchen. Who does that? She had this voice that sounded like she was always halfway through a sales pitch. Her kids were with their dad that weekend, but she showed me pictures. Mark, 16, and Abby, 10. I nodded like I cared. I didn't. 3 months later, they were married. Not engaged, married. Real fast. Valerie moved in like she owned the place. New rugs, fresh paint in the hallway, throw pillows with tassels. Mark and Abby got their own rooms the same day they arrived. My mom's craft room got cleaned out for Abby, the guest room for Mark. I got asked to share mine. I just think it's a smart use of space, Valerie said, smiling like a teacher trying to make detention sound fun. Dad nodded. That's all he did lately, nod. At first, I tried to buy in. Family dinners, movie nights, the whole bit. But I wasn't dumb. The jokes at the table, I didn't get them. They'd laugh about shows I didn't watch, places I'd never been, stories I wasn't part of. I'd try to jump in and they'd go quiet, like I'd killed the vibe. Then my mom started vanishing. First it was her framed pictures, taken off the walls, boxed up in the attic to make space. Then the snow globe collection she kept since college. Gone. I asked Dad where it went. She said it clashed with the new shelves, he mumbled, not even looking at me. Even the Sundays disappeared. Bruins games replaced with Abby's painting classes or Mark's soccer matches. One weekend, I went out to work on the old grill with Dad, like we used to. Valerie poked her head out the back door and said, "Tom, can you help Abby with her science fair project?" He went inside, didn't say a word. The rose garden was the last thing to go. One morning, I saw Valerie on the phone out back, stepping around it like it was trash. The next week, a landscaper showed up and ripped everything out. When I asked what happened, she smiled like it was cute. "Oh, those were dying anyway." Number? They weren't. I didn't say anything, just walked back upstairs to my half room and closed the door. A week after the garden was ripped out, Valerie moved a standing desk into the living room and started calling it her home office. She'd sit there on her laptop, clacking away like she was the CEO of something important. While the rest of us stepped around her like furniture, Dad started taking her advice. First on house stuff, switching out the couch, putting in a Nest thermostat like we were running a damn tech startup. Then it got bigger. He started bringing her to business meetings, not just casual tag-alongs either. She'd sit in with clients, pitch ideas, streamline operations, as she called it. I caught her one night on the phone, talking about the yard like it was hers. "Tom and I are shifting priorities this quarter, and Dad just let her." I tried saying something. I told him I didn't think it was smart mixing his work with her suggestions. He looked up from his emails and said, "She's just helping." Flat. No room for pushback, like he'd rehearsed it. Next thing I knew, my room got re-evaluated. Valerie walked in one day, clipboard in hand, and told me I'd be moving into the smaller guest room downstairs because Abby needed creative space for her art. I said, "No, this is my room." She didn't blink. "We'll make it nice for you. Paint the walls, maybe get you a new lamp." I told Dad. He didn't even look up from the paper. "Just go with it, Ryan. It's not forever." But it was. That room, the one with the tiny window and the weird draft, became mine. Abby got my hardwood floors, my shelves, even the old Bruins poster I forgot to grab. Valerie had it reframed. Every time I opened my mouth about something, Valerie twisted it. "He's being aggressive," she'd tell Dad. "He's shutting down. He's not adapting well." Whatever that meant. Meanwhile, Mark got a used BMW for his 17th birthday. BMW. I was asked to reconsider a $40 school trip to New York because money's tight right now. I started coming home later, studied at the library, hung out in the school parking lot with the engine running. I didn't want to walk in and hear Abby talking about her private art coach, or Mark bragging about some trip Valerie booked for him and his dad. I didn't want to be asked to unload groceries I didn't pick, sit at a table I didn't belong to, or listen to Valerie pitch new family rules. By the time junior year rolled around, I stopped asking for anything. I figured out how to get what I needed myself. Part-time gigs, tutoring underclassmen, selling old stuff online. I stayed out of the way, stayed quiet. Valerie liked it that way. Dad barely noticed. His hair got grayer, his shoulders started slumping, and he was always somewhere else, either literally or just mentally checked out. I kept my head down and circled the date. College move-in day. That was the finish line. That was when I'd finally walk out the front door without looking back. I was in third period history when the principal walked in. She called my name, quiet and quick, like she didn't want to explain anything in front of the other kids. I followed her down the hallway, stomach flipping, no idea what was waiting. The school counselor was in her office, already crying. That's when I knew. "Your dad was in a car accident this morning," she said. "He didn't make it." I didn't hear anything after that, just white noise and the sound of a clock ticking way too loud. He was on his way to a client site up near Haverhill. Black ice, lost control, dead before the ambulance even showed up. The funeral was 3 days later, and Valerie ran it like she was planning a damn fundraiser. Matching brochures, gift baskets for the guests. She picked some generic church, booked a string quartet, and talked more about Tom's leadership than his actual life. She didn't mention my mom, not once. She barely mentioned me. I sat in the front row like a ghost, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. Her co-workers, her friends, her cousins. No Bruins hat, no old stories. No one from the concrete yard spoke. She didn't ask them. Afterward, people kept saying, "He was a great man," and I just nodded like I wasn't boiling inside. A week later, we had the will reading. Valerie rolled up in a pencil skirt and heels, Mark tagging along like he had business there. I sat in a stiff chair while the lawyer read it out, monotone. The house, Valerie's, the company, also Valerie's, the education trust, mine, kind of. She was listed as trustee. I'd get full control at 25. I blinked. Wait, she's in charge of it? The lawyer just said. That's what the document states. I stared at her. This is my room. Number? It was. Now it's Mark's. Then came the money games. I asked for $200 to cover books for the semester. She told me to email her the list, and she'd see what was necessary. When I bought a $10 calculator, she demanded the receipt. You'll need to learn financial responsibility, she said, sipping wine like she was doing me a favor. Meanwhile, Mark got a brand new laptop and some noise-canceling headphones for his studies. Abby got a second easel, private lessons, and a 3-day trip to a gallery in New York. My future? She didn't even protect my bed. I tried going around her once, called the bank directly to ask about the fund. They told me she had full control until I turned 25. Unless she committed fraud, there was nothing I could do. I started feeling trapped in a house that used to feel like mine. Valerie would walk around humming while Mark blasted music and Abby painted on the porch. I kept to myself, sleeping in the basement, trying not to lose my mind. She had taken over everything. My dad's house, his company, and now my future, one receipt at a time. By the time senior year of high school rolled around, I didn't even ask Valerie if I could apply to college. I just did it. Suffolk University gave me a partial scholarship, which felt like breathing air after holding it for too long. I brought her the paperwork and a list of covered and uncovered costs. Books, housing, meal plan. I even color-coded it to make it idiot-proof. She glanced at it, pushed her glasses up and said, "The fund's underperforming right now. The business needs support. We'll cover tuition, but the rest is your responsibility." I blinked. So, where am I supposed to live? Eat? I'm not your mother, Ryan. Grow up. That was it. No follow-up, no solution. Just a door half closed behind her as she walked away. I picked up 2 jobs before I even moved out. Bookstore near campus during the day, coffee shop late nights. I found a cheap apartment in Roxbury with 2 other guys. One of them sold weed out of the kitchen, but the rent was $300 a month and I had a mattress on the floor. I made it work. Yes, first semester wasn't bad. I kept my head down, aced my classes, stayed out of the apartment as much as possible. But the bookstore cut hours. Then the coffee shop got bought out and replaced half the staff. My hours went down. Bills stayed the same. I asked Valerie for a couple hundred to make rent. She sent me an email. Funds must be prioritized toward long-term education outcomes. You should consider applying for food stamps or student housing assistance. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes, thinking about how Mark just posted a picture of himself on a ski trip. I hadn't had a warm meal in 3 days. By junior year, it hit the wall. I couldn't cover rent. I got an eviction notice with my name spelled wrong, but the message was clear. I packed my stuff into trash bags, loaded it into my Corolla, 11 years old, back seat ripped, trunk held shut with a bungee cord, and told my roommates I was going to stay with family for a bit. I didn't tell them the family I had wouldn't even loan me $20 for groceries. The car became my apartment. I signed up for a cheap 24/7 gym, showered there every morning, kept shampoo and a towel in the trunk. I rotated parking spots every couple nights, Target lots, side streets in Brighton, church parking lots on weekdays. I had the timing down like muscle memory, nap at the library, class at noon, back to the car by midnight. Dinner was gas station sandwiches or leftover muffins from the cafe I still worked at 3 nights a week. One of the baristas joked that I always smelled like cinnamon. I laughed. She didn't know I was living off that smell. For 3 months, I told no one, not my professors, not my co-workers, not even the kid I tutored in econ who looked up to me like I had it all figured out. That whole time, I kept emailing Valerie, asking for book money, lab fees, exam prep. She replied with the same copy-paste line every time. This trust is not your personal piggy bank. I wanted to scream, but I didn't have the luxury. I had to survive, had to outlast her. I remember this one night, sleep pounding the roof of the car, my phone at 3%, trying to finish a paper on my cracked screen with frozen fingers. That night broke something in me, not my spirit, something colder. That's when I stopped hoping she'd change. That's when I knew I was getting out of this, but not with her help. I was done being the polite kid who waited his turn. I was done asking. I was dead on my feet that morning at the coffee shop. 4 hours of sleep, half a bagel in my stomach, and a shift full of cranky commuters barking for espresso shots. I was wiping down the pastry case when I saw him. Uncle Dean, older now, hair mostly gray, suit wrinkled at the shoulders like he'd slept in the car. He ordered black coffee, didn't look twice, until he did. He squinted, leaned in a little, then froze. "Ryan?" I didn't even know what to say. I gave him a weak half smile. "Hey, Uncle Dean." He just stared. His eyes scanned me top to bottom, like he didn't believe what he was seeing. I probably looked 20 pounds lighter than the last time he saw me. Hollow cheeks, hair too long, eyes shot from no sleep. He stepped aside while I rang up the next guy, then waited at a corner table until I clocked out. We sat across from each other with 2 cold coffees between us. I didn't sugarcoat anything, told him everything. Valerie, the trust, the car, the freezing nights, the receipts, the silence. I talked fast, not to rush, just to get it all out before I lost my nerve. He didn't interrupt once, just sat there with his jaw clenched, tapping his thumb against the cup. Every few minutes he'd nod like he was filing it away. When I finally stopped, he leaned forward and said, "You're coming with me." That was it. No if, no when. Just that. I followed him out of the shop like a stray dog. He had a Range Rover now, still smelled like expensive cologne and leather seats. The whole ride to his house, he didn't speak. Neither did I. His place was up in Wellesley, big stone house, wide lawn, clean driveway. He opened the door, dropped his keys in a tray, and turned to me. "Your family. That's the end of the conversation." He pointed to a guest room upstairs. Full bed, clean sheets, closet with hangers already in it. The bathroom had fluffy towels and shampoo that didn't come from a vending machine. The fridge was packed. I stood there like a man who'd wandered into someone else's life. I didn't cry, but I almost did. The next morning, we drove to his lawyer's office. Downtown Boston, glass building, view of the harbor. Dean introduced me like I was his own kid. The lawyer, name was Harmon, didn't smile, didn't shake hands, just opened a legal pad and said, "Tell me everything." So I did, again. He asked questions this time, dates, amounts, specific emails. I pulled out my phone, showed him every exchange with Valerie, showed him the texts, the declined transfers, the "I'll look into it" messages that led nowhere. He took notes fast, no hesitation. Just pen on paper like a machine. When I finished, he closed the notebook, looked at Dean, and said flat out, "This isn't just sketchy, it's criminal." Harmon worked fast. Within 2 weeks, he had full access to the trust records, business account activity, and every authorized withdrawal Valerie made since Dad died. He walked into Dean's kitchen one morning, dropped a thick manila folder on the table, and said, "She stole nearly 200 grand. I opened it. There it was in black and white. Fake investment payments to a consulting firm she'd created under a different LLC, tuition checks to a private high school Mark never even finished, art camps for Abby, home renovations listed as business improvements. I flipped through the pages, each one heavier than the last. "She didn't just lie," Harmon said. "She laundered your future." Dean didn't say much, just picked up the phone and made the call. The meeting was set for that Friday. We didn't go to some courthouse. We made her sit down in Harmon's downtown office. Glass walls, steel table, no escape. She walked in wearing this cream-colored blazer like she was headed to brunch. Fake smile, tight eyes. Her lawyer followed behind her like a lapdog. She didn't look at me once. Harmon started. "Valerie, we have full documentation of your misuse of funds from the educational trust assigned to Ryan." Her lawyer tried to jump in, but Harmon cut him off like he was flicking away a gnat. Then he turned to me. "Go ahead." I leaned forward, calm as I'd ever been. "You took what my dad left me, said you were protecting it, said I wasn't responsible enough, but you used it to send your kid on ski trips and buy yourself a kitchen remodel." Valerie finally looked at me. "I did what I thought was best for the family. We were all—" "No," I cut in. "You weren't my family. You were a squatter in my life." She started to say something else, but Dean leaned in, voice low and sharp. "You stole from my brother's son. I don't give a damn how you try to spin it." That's when she cracked. Not full breakdown, just that stiff shoulder slump people do when they know they've lost. Her lawyer whispered something, but she just stared at the floor. Harmon gave her 2 options, civil and criminal charges, full audit, and a court case. or settlement, restitution, and surrender of all control over the trust. Her hands were tied. She settled. That meant she had to sell the business, the house too. She walked out of the office that day without the blazer, without the fake smile, just a cheap handbag and a lawyer who couldn't look her in the eye. I walked out with everything she tried to steal from me, the trust, control of my own future, and something bigger, the truth, out in the open. Dean and I didn't celebrate. We didn't go out for dinner or raise glasses. We just drove home in silence, both of us knowing we'd buried more than one thing that day. The next morning, I signed the papers to take back control of my life. That same afternoon, I signed the lease on a real apartment. 1 bedroom, 2nd floor, 10-minute walk to Suffolk. Heat worked, windows locked. Carpet smelled like pine cleaner and freedom. I didn't look back once. First thing I did was quit the bookstore. A week later, I dropped the coffee shop too. Dean covered the gap for a bit. Not because I asked, but because he knew what I needed more than anything was rest. Actual rest. The kind you don't have to earn by nearly dying. He showed up every Sunday with groceries, and we started making dinner together. Real dinners, steak, pasta, even tried his mom's meatloaf recipe once. It was awful, but we laughed so hard we forgot the timer. Therapy started slow. Couple sessions where I didn't say much. Then one night, I told the whole story, from the pancakes to the parking lots. My therapist didn't cry, she didn't pity me, she just nodded like, "Good. Now we start rebuilding." So I did. I studied harder. Showed up to every class on time, didn't miss a single assignment. Something had shifted. I wasn't just chasing a degree anymore. I was chasing purpose. That's when I found the shelter. It was one of those half-hidden places most people walk past without noticing. Old brick building, peeling paint, cardboard signs in the windows. They help students like me, the invisible ones. Kids working 3 jobs, crashing in stairwells, pretending everything was fine while their world burned under the surface. I started volunteering. Then I started connecting. One night, I talked to a kid named Nate, freshman, scared, wearing a coat 2 sizes too small. I told him about my Corolla. He didn't laugh. He didn't blink. He just said, "Same." That was it. I got a part-time job helping students find housing, filing forms, making calls, setting up interviews with landlords who didn't treat them like crap. I used my story to get them through the door. It worked. Meanwhile, Dean started teaching me how to handle money, not just budgeting, actual planning, investments, smart spending. "You got the heart, kid," he said. "Don't waste it being reckless." We met every Tuesday at the same diner. Yellow booths, greasy burgers, best coffee in town. He'd show me spreadsheets on his tablet and mix them with stories about my dad I'd never heard. Like the time Dad saved the company during the 2008 crash by pulling double shifts for 6 months straight. Or how he always packed extra sandwiches in case a crew guy forgot his lunch. "Your father had grit," Dean said once, sliding me a legal pad. "You got that too, but you got brains on top of it. Use both." But I didn't feel scared. I felt steady, clear. I knew what I was doing now. 5 years later, my life finally felt mine. I had a steady apartment in Somerville. Nothing fancy, just quiet, clean, mine. I worked full-time at a nonprofit downtown, helping kids who'd gone through the same kind of hell I crawled out of. Rent got paid on time. Fridge stayed stocked. I didn't have to count quarters for gas anymore. Dad's old company was still alive. Dean helped stabilize it after the mess Valerie left behind. We kept it lean. No fluff, no lies, no fake consultants. I sat on the board now, not because of my last name, but because I showed up, read the numbers, and knew what mattered. Dean made sure of that. So did the guys he brought in. People who actually gave a damn. As for Valerie, Mark, and Abby, gone, moved out of state. I heard through someone's cousin that she worked admin at a local car dealership. Honestly, I didn't care. Not out of forgiveness, just because they didn't take up space in my life anymore. I still thought about the Corolla sometimes, the frozen mornings, waking up with a hoodie pulled over my face, acting like I was just between things. The smell of gas station air fresheners, the sound of passing cars rocking me to sleep. It never fully left me. I didn't want it to, because I didn't carry shame anymore. I carried proof. Proof that I survived it, that I didn't fold when it got ugly, that I held the line while they tried to erase me, and that I walked out with my head up and my future back in my own hands. Dad would have been proud, not just because I got the degree, but because I didn't quit. I never let someone else write the final chapter. Life was quiet now. No drama, no surprises. I had Sunday dinner at Dean's every week. Same table, same corny stories. Bills paid. Calendar full. Future clear. Nobody told me what to do with my money. Nobody asked for receipts. Nobody questioned if I deserved what I had. And every time I helped another student find a safe place to sleep, even just for one night, I remembered that cold Corolla and the way it felt to be forgotten. Helping them, that was payback money couldn't buy.